What's good, y'all? My name is Zach Young, and welcome back to Young Money Sports. And today, we've got another episode of Was He Any Good? Glad to see we got some new faces here today. Appreciate the love on that last video. But now, let's get this one going. Dwight Howard, one of the best defensive centers of all time. This guy's athleticism and strength made him a threat on both sides of the ball in his prime. Offensively, he was able to back his defender down and finish in the paint, or he could easily catch a lob. He was even better on defense, since he could leap out of the building to block a shot. In Orlando, he basically had a monopoly on the Defensive Player of the Year award, winning it 3 straight times between 2009 and 2011. He was also named to the All-Defensive Team 5 times, the All-NBA Team 6 times, and he was selected as an All-Star 6 times. Drafted first overall by the Magic in 2004, Howard gave this team a show that they hadn't seen since the last time they had the top pick. Howard and the Magic continued to improve, making the playoffs every year from 2007 to 2012. The peak of this run came in 2009, when the Magic were able to break through and finally become championship contenders. Howard had a great all-around year filled with accolades and achievements, and the supporting cast perfectly complemented him. The Magic did a great job surrounding Howard with sharpshooters that could capitalize on opposing defenses crashing the paint. This team was able to go all the way to the finals, defeating the defending champion Celtics and LeBron James-led Cavs in the process. It seemed like Dwight could bring Orlando a championship only 20 years after they were created. They did have a chance in 1995, but those championship dreams were quickly swept by the Rockets. They would have to match up with the Lakers in the NBA Finals. While this series looks like it was lopsided, Orlando had chances to make this competitive. Courtney Lee could have hit this game-winning alley-oop to even the series, and Howard could have helped the Magic seal Game 4, but he bricked both free throws. It didn't seem like Orlando was going to be a one and done. They had the pieces to be competitive for years to come, but this wasn't meant to be. The Magic got rid of some of their core players, and they suffered as a result. They were already fighting an uphill battle, since the Big Three had joined forces about 3 hours away. These moves angered Howard, as he felt like the Magic were due for a title if they ran it back with the same team in the 2010 season. Instead, they tried to go big, trading away Hedo Turkoglu and making another trade for former All-Star Vince Carter. This experiment didn't work, and by 2012, the writing was on the wall for Howard in Orlando. He had tried to quietly request a trade, but of course news like this isn't going to stay quiet for long. The same could be said for Howard's request that head coach Stan Van Gundy be fired. This led to one of the most awkward interview clips I think I've ever seen.
Talk to management. Will they listen to him, or will it be a management?
Oh, I have no idea. They can. Well, obviously it'll be a management decision. They have to make the decision. But I ain't worried about that. So.
Yeah, Stan, we're not worried about that, right?
That's what I just said. We got to be worried about winning games.
Yeah, what's our main concern right now? Jameer.
We have to stop Carmelo Anthony and the New York Knicks tonight.
And the New York Knicks.
That's exactly
That's
right.
the plan, right?
That is the plan. That's what I just said.
Orlando did finish with 37 wins in the lockout-shortened season, and they did make the playoffs once again, but Howard wouldn't even suit up. He was declared out for the season due to a herniated disc in his back. He tried to get treatment to alleviate the pain, but it was concluded that he needed to get surgery. He would have to watch as the Magic bowed out in the first round, and his future was once again in question. The 2012 offseason came and went, and although it took a while, Howard was eventually shipped out. He stated before that he wanted to go to the Brooklyn Nets. He liked the idea of playing with Darren Williams, and the Nets trading for Joe Johnson only intensified his urge to play in Barclays Center. However, this trade would never go through, as Orlando never loved what Brooklyn was offering. From what I've seen, the offer was 4 unprotected firsts, Brook Lopez, and Chris Humphries in exchange for Howard, Jason Richardson, Chris Duhon, and Earl Clark. That really shows you how NBA trades have evolved over the years. Nowadays, that trade would be good enough to maybe get you Desmond Bane. With the Nets off the table, another team stepped up with an offer. That team was the Los Angeles Lakers. They were trying to capitalize on Kobe's remaining years and allow him to compete for championships to the very end. They already had a good core, and they also traded for legendary point guard Steve Nash. They signed Anton Jamison, and acquiring Howard could be what pushed them over the edge. The deal was completed in August of 2012, but it wasn't a simple one-to-one deal. An assortment of players and picks were dealt between 4 teams. I'll put them on screen now so you can see how massive this was, but in short, the players that Orlando was going to send to Brooklyn were instead sent to LA. Howard was in the City of Angels, and a new super team was created to combat the Big Three in Miami. There was some uneasiness from Howard when he was traded. He had just played Kobe and the Lakers in the finals 3 years prior, and he had always seen him as competition. He wanted to get a fresh start in Brooklyn, but instead he was going to play with a guy who had beaten him on the biggest stage and dunked on him in a game. But despite these issues, the Lakers still looked like the team to beat. Adding 2 All-Stars and forming a Big Four seemed to guarantee success. There was a Sports Illustrated cover with Nash and Dwight that said this season was going to be fun. But if you know anything about this team, you know this was the polar opposite of fun. So the 2013 season began, and the Lakers immediately struggled. Howard wasn't playing bad, but the team started off 1-4. This led to them firing head coach Mike Brown, replacing him with Mike D'Antoni. Howard wanted Phil Jackson, but the Buss family felt that D'Antoni would work better with Nash. This would already cause problems for Howard. D'Antoni loved to run his offense through his guards and work with big men who could shoot. This was the opposite of Howard's offensive skill set. He relied more on backing down his defender in the paint and controlling the ball for the possession. There were also hopes that Howard could run the pick and roll more with Steve Nash. This only limited him more, since there was never a threat of him popping out for a mid-range or three-point shot. This wasn't just an issue with Howard, as Pau Gasol also had issues adjusting to Mike D'Antoni's system. You would think that Howard would struggle and crash out, but he was still able to play well. He could still stuff the stat sheet like he did in Orlando. There were a handful of games that he wasn't heavily involved in the offense, but he never looked like a bad starting option. He had multiple games where he surpassed the 25-point mark. He scored 28 points and collected 20 rebounds in a win over the Nuggets. He put up 21 and 15 in his first game against the Magic. He nearly had another 2020 game in a loss to the Cavs, which is a common thread with this team. The Lakers struggled throughout the 2013 season. A mix of injuries, questionable depth, and a lack of chemistry led to LA having a losing record by the time the All-Star break came around. Howard was named to his 7th All-Star team, but that seemed rather hollow given the expectations put on both him and the Lakers. The season continued to trudge on for the Lakers. Howard was still putting up respectable numbers, including a 39-point, 16-rebound performance in his first trip back to Orlando. Being the competitor that he was, Kobe Bryant wasn't going to let this team miss the playoffs. He turned up his play even more, going on a tear after the All-Star break. He helped turn the Lakers' fortunes around, propelling them back to a winning record. Even with the injuries and drama, this team was finding a way to win. Who knew what they could do in the playoffs? Maybe they could get a miracle run and everything could click. You'd be hard-pressed to find a team that would want to play Kobe in a playoff series with how well he was doing. But then, disaster struck. In another win against the Warriors, Kobe would tear his Achilles, putting him out for the season and effectively ending his career. Howard would put up 28 and 7 in this victory, and he averaged 21 points and 11 rebounds in the final month of the season. He finished the season averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks on around 58% shooting. Along with his All-Star nod, he was also named to the All-NBA third team, and he led the league in rebounds. The Lakers finished the season with a 45-37 record, good enough for the 7th best record in the West. They would match up with a 58-win Spurs in the first round. This series was a foregone conclusion. Howard played about as well as he did in the regular season, but there was no chance in hell that this team would beat San Antonio without Kobe. LA also dealt with more injuries in the playoffs, only getting Steve Nash for 2 games. The Lakers were easily swept, and Howard's impending free agency loomed over Los Angeles. In spite of their nightmare of a season, the Lakers still wanted to keep Dwight. He was on an expiring contract when he was traded, but the team hoped that being in a championship culture would be enough for him to stick around. They put billboards up telling him to stay, not to mention that the Lakers could offer him $30 million more than any other team. But their efforts weren't enough, and Howard would join the Houston Rockets in free agency. He liked the idea of playing with James Harden, and I also think he didn't like his fit in the Lakers' offense. Steve Nash once said that he felt like Dwight was never comfortable in LA, like he almost had a foot out the door during the season. Not only did he not work well with the offense, but he also had some friction with Kobe. We all know about Kobe and his Mamba mentality. He's been documented as one of the hardest working NBA players ever, so naturally, this wasn't going to mesh well with Dwight. Not that he wasn't a hard worker, he just wasn't as serious as Kobe. Kobe later said that he had an idea of what it took to win a championship, and Dwight's version was much different. When his expectations weren't met, it made him uncomfortable. People expected the second coming of Kobe and Shaq, but we never saw anything consistently resembling that. So, Howard was off to Houston. He would have one more All-Star caliber year before he would begin to see his star fade. After 3 years in Houston, he would have a homecoming in Atlanta. He was shipped to Charlotte after a year and actually had a nice bounce-back campaign. Then he would be traded and bought out a couple times, landing him in Washington. Nothing of note happened in his 9 games in DC, and he was shut down after undergoing spinal surgery. Yeah, that's basically it. I guess we can just get to that rating now. But then, after a season-ending injury to DeMarcus Cousins, the Lakers were on a hunt to find another center. Lucky for them, Dwight Howard was on the market, although LA was still a bit hesitant to bring him back. Howard had developed a reputation in recent years, and he felt like he had hit rock bottom. To ensure that he would stay in line and fulfill whatever role he was given, the Lakers gave him a non-guaranteed contract. He would be paid daily, but he could be cut at any time. To many, this was Dwight's last chance. At 34 years old, if he couldn't cut it here, his career would likely be over. But unlike last time he was in LA, all the expectations wouldn't rest on his shoulders. His job was to come in for Anthony Davis or JaVale McGee and be a spark off the bench, grab boards, block some shots, and maybe catch a few lobs. Howard was great in this role. he would still have the occasional great offensive performance, and he was consistently being a good presence off the bench. He finished the 2020 season averaging around 8 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 block on 73% shooting. LA returned to the postseason for the first time since 2013, which was also the last time Dwight played for the Lakers. Funny how that all works out. LA finished with 52 wins in the COVID-shortened season, good enough for the best record in the West. They would easily defeat Portland in the first round, with Howard averaging a little over 8 points and 6 rebounds in this 5-game series. His role would decrease in the second round, since the Rockets were running nothing but small ball. It just made sense to have better perimeter defenders on the floor. It worked in their favor, and the Lakers were on to the conference finals. This is what gets brought up a lot regarding Howard's second go-around in LA. Howard was praised for his performance against Nikola Jokic. He was making him work every possession. His job was to wear Jokic down and impact the game in other ways, and he was able to do enough to help the Lakers win the West. Jokic's numbers, while still good, were down from his last series against the Clippers, so you can see the defensive impact that Howard had. In the finals, his role would reduce once more, but the Lakers would still defeat the Miami Heat to capture their first championship in 10 years. For the first time in this series, someone wins a championship. It's cool to see him redeem himself in LA after his name was associated with drama and failure in that city, even if it was at the expense of my team. He wasn't brought back following this championship run, but he would spend one more season with the Lakers in 2022. This made him the first player to ever spend 3 stints with a team that he was an all-star on in NBA history. This is probably the only notable thing that Howard did in his third stint in LA. He was really starting to show his age, and the 2022 Lakers were also a burning dumpster fire. This team was so bad that they didn't even make the play-in, and Howard averaged career lows in points and rebounds. After not securing a roster spot in 2022, Dwight Howard spent a year in Taiwan. He flirted with the idea of making an NBA comeback, but nothing has come from it as of now. This year, it was announced that Dwight Howard was going to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, which is also really cool. I always felt like this guy didn't get his flowers for how good he really was in his prime. Like, how was he not named to the NBA Top 75, but Dame was? It makes zero sense to me that a guy who was a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA member, and a multiple-time All-Star who also won a championship couldn't get in that list. He also got his team to the finals, which is something that Dame couldn't say, but I digress. Nowadays, he makes occasional podcast appearances, and he also enjoys crowd fighting with Lance Stevenson. But now, to answer the question, Dwight Howard in LA, was he any good? I think this first stint gets a bit too much hate. Was it disappointing? Sure, but that whole team was. I don't think you can solely blame that on Dwight. He was just coming off back surgery, and that team didn't mesh well at all. He still put up a respectable year, it just wasn't great for his standards. He also got some redemption years later, being a key piece in their championship run. He had become more humble and accepted his role, which led to LA winning their one and only championship with LeBron and AD. You can find a lot of good in his time in the City of Angels, so the answer is yes. That's going to do it for this video. What did you all think about Dwight Howard in LA? Who else would you like to see on Was He Any Good? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all later.
Fans here to the Staples Center. Howard for 3.